Tigers are usually seen as fierce, dangerous animals, but the tiny cub Atwood found in the forest was nothing like that. It was badly hurt and clearly couldn't defend itself. Years later, Atwood thought the tiger would have forgotten all about him. But when they crossed paths again, the way it reacted left him speechless. Atwood lived alone in a quiet mountain village. He didn't have much money or family, and although he never had the chance to go to college, he was sharp and kind. He liked solving problems and never backed away from hard work. So when someone offered him a job as a forest ranger, he jumped at it. It felt like the perfect fit. After all, he had spent his whole life in those mountains and knew every trail and tree by heart. Every other day, Atwood hiked deep into the forest to record what he saw for the ranger team. One winter morning, while doing his usual patrol, something happened that would stay with him forever. That day, the forest looked completely different. Thick snow covered everything, and it was hard to tell where anything was. Walking through it with his gear on was exhausting, and he had to stop often to catch his breath. During one of these short breaks, he heard a faint whimper coming from nearby. He stood still, trying to figure out where the sound was coming from. But as soon as he moved even a little, the noise stopped. He wondered if he was just tired and imagining things. But just as he was about to move on, he heard it again. This time, he could tell it was coming from a bush right in front of him. He carefully stepped closer, and that's when he saw a small head poking out from the snow. It was a tiger cub. The little animal kept whimpering and shaking its head, trying to get the snow off. Atwood leaned in and saw deep bite marks on its body. Its leg looked twisted, probably broken. Without wasting a second, Atwood scooped up the cub, cradling it close to his chest, and started heading back down the mountain as fast as he could. When he finally got home, he made a soft bed for the cub out of old clothes. He found some healing herbs he knew from experience and gently cleaned the wounds. Then he collected some sticks from outside and carefully tied them to the cub's leg to keep it still. The cub whimpered but didn't fight him. It let Atwood treat the injuries as best as he could. Even as the sky darkened and it got close to dinner, Atwood couldn't stop thinking about the injured cub now lying quietly in his home. He figured it must be hungry, but he didn't know what to feed a baby tiger. Then it hit him. His dog had recently had puppies and still had milk. Atwood managed to collect some of the dog's milk in a bowl and gently brought it to the little tiger, hoping it would be enough to help it through the night. The cub looked worn out and in pain, but when it sniffed the milk, it showed a little interest. Atwood held the bowl near its mouth, and slowly the cub started licking at it. That gave Atwood a bit of hope. Animals that are close to dying usually don't want to eat, so he took this as a good sign. Day after day, Atwood stayed by the cub's side. He kept feeding it the dog's milk and made sure it stayed warm and comfortable. Slowly but surely, the cub began to grow stronger. Its wounds healed over time, though it was left with a long scar running down its leg. At some point, Atwood realized the cub had started to feel like a pet, and he decided to give it a name: Gore. 6 months later, the weak little cub had turned into a powerful, striking tiger. Gore would often join Atwood during his forest patrols, walking beside him like a giant, playful cat. On those walks, Atwood saw how Gore would roll in the grass, swat at leaves, and play like he was still a baby. The ranger smiled at the sight, but deep down, he knew Gore didn't act like a wild tiger anymore. That's when Atwood made one of the hardest decisions of his life. He took Gore deep into the mountain to release him back into the wild. As he turned to leave, Gore followed him, just like he always had. Atwood didn't know how to make him stay. In desperation, he shouted and waved his arms. Gore had never seen Atwood angry before and seemed startled. After a few seconds, the tiger ran off into the trees. Atwood stood still for a moment, tears stinging his eyes, then slowly made his way back home. The forest felt quieter after that. Atwood still walked his usual patrols, but Gore was nowhere to be found. Then one day, something unexpected happened that changed everything. While walking along his regular trail, Atwood fainted. A villager named Bonnie, who was nearby chopping wood, spotted him and rushed to help. Bonnie didn't just save his life, she became a part of it. From that day on, they were rarely apart. A few weeks later, she told Atwood that she cared deeply for him and wanted to be more than just friends. He felt the same way, and not long after, they became husband and wife. By the time Atwood was nearly 50, he and Bonnie had a daughter of their own. Life felt full. But then, on another one of his forest walks, Atwood felt a sharp pain in his side and fainted again. Thankfully, Bonnie was with him. It took them 3 hours to reach the nearest road, but a passing driver helped get them to the hospital in time. There, doctors told him his right kidney was shrinking and the left one was failing. He stayed in the hospital for a few days, but when told about the expensive surgery he needed, Atwood quietly declined. He didn't want to put his family under financial pressure. Once he was discharged, he simply returned to his usual forest patrols, just like before. 3 years later, another health scare took Atwood by surprise. This time, his kidneys were in even worse shape. Again, he turned down the surgery, promising instead to rest more during his patrols. The following summer, while out on duty, he noticed thin trails of smoke curling up from the mountain. The region had seen several forest fires lately, and Atwood immediately knew something was wrong. The fire spread fast, and before long, flames were bearing down on him. He tried to run, but his body, already weakened by illness, gave out. He stumbled and hit the ground hard. Just as panic began to set in, a tiger appeared in front of him. Atwood froze. Behind him, the fire roared closer. In front of him, a full-grown tiger blocked the path. He shut his eyes and braced himself, thinking it was the end. But what happened next left him stunned. The tiger lunged, not at him, but at his clothes. It grabbed hold and began dragging him away from the flames. Atwood, confused but grateful, started crawling behind it as best he could. They were nearly out of danger when a burning branch crashed down from a tree and pinned Atwood to the ground. The tiger didn't run. Though it was burned too, it stayed close. It sniffed around, then returned with a large stick in its mouth. Atwood didn't understand at first until it hit him. The tiger wanted him to use the stick as a lever. He did just that and wriggled free, then scrambled to his feet and followed the tiger down the mountain. There were 1,000 questions racing through his mind, but this wasn't the time to ask them. The tiger guided him all the way back home. When they arrived, it gently rubbed its body against Atwood's legs in a familiar, affectionate way. That small gesture jolted Atwood to full awareness. He had thought the whole thing was a dream, until he saw the long scar on the tiger's leg. It was the same scar from years ago. His eyes widened. He looked down and asked, softly but clearly, "Gore?" The tiger turned, let out a deep, echoing roar, and stared at him for a long moment. There was no doubt now. It was Gore. After a few minutes, Gore slowly walked away, back toward the forest. Atwood wished he could ask him to stay, even for just a little while longer. But he knew the truth. Gore had found his place in the wild again. That's where he belonged. Bonnie found Atwood standing outside their home, singed and shaky, but alive. She threw her arms around him, overwhelmed with relief. But Atwood had something to tell her. "It was a tiger," he said. "Gore, he saved me." He told her the whole story, how he had rescued Gore as a cub, and how, all these years later, the tiger had returned the favor. He knew he'd never forget Gore, and deep down he believed the tiger would never forget him either. What a story, right? When Atwood fell in that burning forest, did you expect a tiger would come to the rescue? And did you think Gore would remember him after all those years? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more true stories like this one. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.